we can get started. This is, I don't know what number, maybe fourth or fifth Town Hall State of the Loadpipe blockchain call, and we're trying to do this every 6 weeks. And I think Alex is here to co-host with me. How you doing, Alex?
I'm good. How are you all doing this evening? I was about to say, only evening in Thailand. It's mid-afternoon for Bo. And Jose, I don't know actually what it is for you.
I think it's morning, 9 a.m. for Jose, right? Am I right?
Yes, it is 9 a.m. in the morning. Yeah.
So hopefully this time works for everybody. Please give us feedback if it doesn't. And so the way we do these is we just want everybody to get an update. This is going to be recorded too. We just go through some of the updates of various departments of what we're building here and share some progress since the last call. So the team has been growing as always. We're actually recruiting now. We're interviewing some new developers. We're interviewing some social media marketing people. We're always looking for good talent people in e-commerce or Web3 or product development. So we definitely entertain if applications people are interested to join us. David, were you last time introducing yourself, or is this the first time for you to be on these? I think you were introduced last time, right, David, our CFO?
Yes, I introduced myself last time.
Okay. So I think Don has been formerly on the team to help with a campaign Empower the Seller. I don't see him on today's session. And James, I think he'll be coming in 10 minutes. He might have already been confirmed last time, but he's working on the tokenomics and also some of the biz dev for the crypto side. So those are some of our newer team members. But of course, we are in final round interviews with some developers to join. And we are starting to just do a couple calls with social media marketers as of this week. So that's some updates on the HR or new team members. Do we go to product development, Bo and John? Do you want to give us some updates on the product the last 6 weeks and maybe what to expect the next 6 weeks?
Sure. Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Do you want to go, John, or should I? We've been basking.
Yeah, you guys are doing great. Yeah, you're doing great.
So
play that much because we'll probably hit some sticking points at some time. So maybe we should not play up like the basking in the glory so much. But it's hard to it's hard to pass up. So yeah.
I do. Yeah, it's just that like the last couple of weeks have felt pretty good on the development front. I think maybe 3 weeks ago we were like not quite comfortable with Medusa, or had not gotten like fully comfortable with Medusa yet, but now I feel like we're firing on all cylinders and moving forward. John and Garo last week implemented crypto payment providers, and this week we're working on multi-vendor. And as John said, we run into hiccups here and there, but it does feel like we're making pretty steady progress. And site is, I think, on track to be ready for it, at least in some like MVP form by the next call, which should be in about 6 weeks. Should be done before that, but like in 6 weeks we should have a site live, at least in some form. And I mean, there's like a little bit more thought needs to go into some of the elements, our internal dispute resolution system and some fulfillment stuff. Mike and I also talked about starting to do the vendor onboarding and what vendor onboarding looks like, talking to a new partner who can help us a little bit with that. And then, we're in the middle of hiring a new developer, or at least taking a decision. We have a couple of candidates who we think fill our immediate needs, but we're making some decisions about whether or not, we need another full-time developer, or whether or not they will come on in like a just project-based capacity. But other than that, things are looking good on the product side. Nothing super new to report. Sort of in the same place we were last time, which was preparing for an initial launch.
Great.
I think just Mike, just to put a few comments to that. Team, listen, I've been part of a few tech projects in my career, and I hope everybody is aware of how positive it is that Tech Products is actually on schedule. So I think, reflecting back on our meeting earlier this year in January, what we did was we sat down at a cafe and we sketched up a timeline for how this product was going to develop. And I think for the performance of Bo, John, Garo, it's really nice to hear these things, guys. So I hope the team here acknowledges that this is the fact that there is actually not that many interesting aspects to report is really, really good news, because it means that things are going in the right direction. So I just wanted to highlight that. It's awesome, guys. Great job.
Thanks. And I would like to just specifically shout out John. So in the initial stages of the project, John was limited in time because he was working on some other projects. But ever since really diving into Medusa, things have just gone, insanely fast compared to the speed that they were going. And so I think that a lot of that comes down to John's tech leadership. And second is Garo has fucking killed things recently and has become after not knowing anything about Medusa to begin with, has really, really come up to speed and become our in-house Medusa expert, and is pushing features and pushing, GitHub commits. By the way, if you guys want to look at the GitHub, that's open source. So anybody can go and look at it and see, the frequency with which we're merging pull requests and making commits and everything like that. And you'll see Garo's name in there quite a bit. And so yeah, I am personally very appreciative of the both of them. I think they have both done an incredible job.
Definitely, yeah, I'm hearing great things. I mean, it's also, I was joining some of the final round interviews, and it's just really getting good flow with the product team. You guys are communicating well and planning well. Also, I think the Notion board, I think Bo says, I think that's helped a lot. I think we need to learn from that in the marketing department. Alex and I are taking note and catching up. But yeah, thanks. It's really, been a pleasure to have you all part of our team. So we're very, like Alex says, very fortunate. Okay, James says he'll be a little bit late, so I'll push his update till later. Marketing, I put some outlines. We have quite a few different things happening. More on I kind of go through some of the events coming up. So it's smoky season here in Chiang Mai, as we mentioned before the call. So there's not as much networking and social things in the area, but there will be some meetups at the end of the month of this month, April 30th. There'll be e-commerce meetup, which will be well attended, we're sure. Also, the end of this month in Bangkok, there's Southeast Asia Blockchain Week, April 22nd to 28th. I will be heading down. It's not a far trip. And there's also a meetup with the off-chain ICP friends of ours. They're having a meetup on Tuesday, April 23rd evening. And we're still discussing details about, it's a little informal 6 to 9 p.m. social, but we might have some co-branding with Loadpipe there, and potentially a 5-minute, talk. But it's mostly a networking event, but it'll also be a good time to network there. And then from there, we head to Hanoi, Vietnam that weekend for a hackathon Handshake is doing, which, of course, some of this project was founded from. Andrew Lee and others will be there. And there's actually some e-commerce startups that will be building and start pitching there. So they're already warming me up to talk to them and know that those local teams. And hopefully there's some synergies there. Bitcoin Asia Conference is in Hong Kong, May 9th to the 11th. Speaking to Bitmain will be there. There'll be various friends from the Bitcoin community and Stacks and Alki Labs and various people in Hong Kong. It's a very big hub of Web3, so it's going to be a lot of networking there. And Bo is just chatting before the call. The ETHCC tickets will probably be opening in 3 or 4 hours from now. I think we have to decide if we're going to be going, but we're very heavily leaning towards making a team trip there to kind of make that as one of our bigger marketing and public debuts in July 8th to the 11th in Brussels, Belgium. Also, hopefully with a joint marketing campaign with another blockchain project in the space that we can't wait to cooperate with. And Empower the Seller has been a campaign we've been starting. It's like a music rap campaign to educate people about the needs to be community driven, owning your data, owning your property as a Web3 versus Web2. Don's heading that up. And even later in the year, I'm thinking already about Cross-Border Summit, which is in November for the sellers, November 3rd to the 5th, and how to maximize that for Loadpipe ecosystem. And also DevCon, I think many of you know, is coming to Bangkok, November 12th to the 15th. So how can we make the most of having all these people in Thailand during that time? So that's a lot of different stuff happening. We're also, maybe Alex, you want to share some of your updates with the roadmaps or plans?
Sure. Also, just a quick comment. As Jose has a question which I think relates to this as well. Dev guys, is there a possibility for sharing some screenshots of the new site and various functionalities for the user? Sign in, sign up, shopping, marketing, payments, etc. So I guess there's a question to you, Bo, and you, John.
I mean, and it doesn't, so like a lot of what we're doing is back end right now. So like we could show you the returns from like API calls, but that would be, but like it hasn't reflected, like, so we're still building out the infrastructure, and it should be pretty quick from once the, like, all the back end functionality is established to build out, like, I mean, there's going to be a lot that goes into like building out the admin pages and figuring out how it looks and works. But yeah, no, I wouldn't say there's a visual, we could do like visual update right now, but like functionality, it looks a lot different.
I mean,
I actually do think, John actually had some screenshots of payment provider being like crypto. So, I mean, yeah, I guess we could possibly.
I think, there was that, at least the homepage, it looked pretty sexy. Luciano and Garo worked hard to implement that to the HTML, CSS.
Oh, yeah, I suppose I like that. Go ahead, Garo.
Yeah, sure. No, it's not that we didn't like removed it, but that was like for the hackathon, right? And we were completely restyling it.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean, it looked good as it was when I saw it, but yeah.
I was going to say, if people haven't seen it since, like, before the hackathon, then yeah, like, visually it looks a lot different on the front end. And so we could provide those pictures. I was like thinking since the hackathon, because that was like a major visual update.
I don't think Jose saw that. I mean, I could dig up the Figma, but I don't think he saw that. Right?
I think we'll put the demo site back up soon, just for a little while, just so people can see how it's coming along.
And I get some people interested to buy already. Just casually chatting to some of my friends. I hope everybody understands what the product is. I haven't, but just for anybody that might not be understanding what we're building a crypto native multi-vendor marketplace for people to buy and sell physical products with cryptocurrency. And people are excited to participate. And of course, there's a lot you can do with the power of Web3 and the benefits of Web3 that people will be noticing once they are able to participate. But yeah, Jose, I don't think he saw those Figmas or those design.
Jose comments, yes, he saw it, didn't render well on the mobile though.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that was true. It wasn't mobile friendly. That is true. It was not built for. It was a hackathon, so they focused on desktop only. They didn't make it mobile friendly.
Yeah.
We also need to get the UI UX. Like we have to get the UI design for mobile to actually implement that too, from Figma to mobile.
So Jose comments as well. Anyways, the reason why I ask is to begin making the support docs for the SOP for the user. This is really good. I can segue on this, right? Because Mike, as you asked me, the timeline for what we've been discussing is a little different than the product timeline, right? So I'd like to start just to give you all an insight with a quote I always come back to, which is tell me I forget, show me I remember, but involve me and I understand. And when it comes to the levels of education, I think this last part, the involvement part, is really where we need to strive. One of my observations being, you guys know me. I go everywhere. I'm very curious about how everybody sees this project. But an observation that has occurred to me is that people have different ways of seeing Loadpipe, Hamza, and the problem we're solving. It's like the five blind men and the elephant, right? People interpret their experience of what they're working with differently. And I think this is a great strength because it gives us multiple different perspectives to how we solve and make this problem happen. But when it comes to telling someone new about what we're doing, it depends on what kind of angle we take, and stretching this out all the way to, what the final product might look like, what kind of people we need involved in the earlier use of the product design features. That all becomes next steps for marketing purposes, for fundraising purposes, for SOPs, etc., etc. One of the things that me and Mike has been talking a lot about is setting up a learning and development track. By learning and development, we mean making sure that everything we understand about what we're building is actually is one truth, right? Is collectively put into either a document or SOP. That's really up for us to decide. But getting to the point of where we can start communicating this in bite-sized features to the audience that we are still trying to discover. And the last thing I'd like to say about this is that the audience we're still trying to discover is not just Amazon sellers, right? It's not just Amazon sellers who are experiencing issues with Amazon, right? It's also the broad scope buyer segment that is spread across the world. Mike had a conversation earlier today about where was this gentleman from, Mike? Portugal?
Portugal, yeah.
Yeah. So he wants to buy from Portugal, but that's a completely different problem statement, right? That we don't just sell someone to Portugal. We need to ensure that there's actually the ability for us to deliver, right? So then there comes the logistics question. There's so many loose ends, which is all great, right? Because these all present opportunities that we can communicate to a community. And so the starting process here now that we're looking at is how can we best understand what we're doing, and then how can we best involve our community into co-creating this with us. And one of the ideas, I think, which I think, Mike, you can talk a little bit more about, is Mike a few months back made what was called the Blimp method, which was is basically a course that would educate individuals to conduct a specific kind of e-commerce by paying to learn. I think this might be one of the first gateways that we can get people to adopt both Hamza and Loadpipe in this mindset, is to pay to learn, and then we take them under the wing. I call these the Hamza cohorts. These would basically be the identification of OGs or very, very early adopters. And I would like to start this as we experience the marketplace being open beta, which would be somewhere in June or July. Mike, I don't know if you want to put some more comments to that or words to our thinking, but I thought that was pretty smart.
Yeah, the tricky parts is this is a two-sided marketplace. There's a chicken or the egg or cold start. I think James will share later in a bit. But we do believe we have advantages on both sides. But the vendor side, especially, I think, needs this education and support. We believe vendors or sellers on this might not be as Web3 savvy and will need extra handholding and support. So the idea is to make paid is one part of it, but more about like OG or handholding or on VIP white glove treatment where they can work in a cohort or a group. So I don't know if many people here know, but one popular program for Amazon sellers was called the Amazing Selling Machine, or ASM. Actually, I don't know if you know that, Alex, but the seller you introduced me to on Friday participated in cohort 3 of ASM. You could ask him sometime. And so there's these cohort-based programs that is very common in not just sellers, but I think in marketing or in business. So we want to have like the first cohort class of this seller onboarding where they can join on a certain start date. We can have a campaign where maybe we use the Empowered Seller as the channel, as top of funnel, and we say, hey, do you want to be the first OG seller on this platform? Apply now. And you can get these benefits, almost like a course. It is a course, but it's like a long form sales page that lists. We will work with you in a group. We'll make video training. We will have mastermind calls. We will answer any questions. We will, et cetera, and you'll be one of the first sellers on this platform. And that might be a better pitch than just telling them to sign up or apply or DIY. They could probably still do a DIY. We might not require them to take this course to become a seller. We would still discuss that. But what we think this might be, it seems Alex also feels the same, and others we've spoken to kind of do like a join our OG platform, be the first cohort of this program and a seller in this ecosystem, and learn together and grow your business together.
This a final comment to this, and then I'm of course curious if anyone else has questions to our ideas. Is that it's also a great way for us to stress test the beta platform, right? Because essentially we would also be telling people that they can be among the first, but this is also a very primitive pitch, right? Because what does that even mean, right? It probably means that many of the features and functions needs to be handheld from end to end, and it's going to also, I hope, reveal to us that there might have been a lot of assumptions about how things work and how sellers think and what's convenient and what's not. You know, it's I used to work with a UX designer who says UX and UI is like a practical joke, right? If you need to explain it, it's not good enough. And I think these factors will become very, very clear to us once we start putting people through the process, whatever that process might be, right? I mean, we are really breaking ground here in something that hasn't been done before. So that's also why, you know, we might see a few explosions before we go into space, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So it does seem to make sense for us to do such a program, and we actually, I think we should involve Jose more. You know, he's asked. I think Jose does have some valuable skills and insights, and is very good at documentation. I think we should maybe, Alex, involve Jose.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Mike. Let me just open up the floor here. I'd like to, if anyone has some comments to this, because this is early sketching, and I know that there's many different perspectives. I see Jose has made a few comments, but Jose, feel free to just jump in and share your thoughts.
You can use audio as well. You can use set text.
Yeah, I've mentioned the need to implement an introductory course before.
Yep.
Because users come. That happened in Perth. Users would just jump into the platform right away, not know how to use it, and that led to a lot of trouble and things that could be avoided if users know how the system works and they know what is expected of them. I think that a lot of things that could lead to disputes in purchases and stuff could be very much avoided if you do that. So yes, it is necessary to educate users on the platform, and especially more so because we're breaking ground here. This is something entirely new.
Yep. I guess the thought I'm having, and I'm open to your feedback, do we require new vendors to go through the program, or could they do it themselves? It's just something I'm thinking about. But
it's the same point, right?
We could incentivize them by, I don't know, token airdrops and something like that,
True.
Becoming ambassadors and maybe onboarding other users, but yeah, I mean, we could make an incentive for vendors, users in general, to take an introductory course.
Yep.
So, Jim, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just thinking of some of the conversations I had recently. You mentioned the fact that we might see some explosions before we go to space, and some of the recent conversations that we've had are also about like this initial rollout strategy, as well as like conceptualizing the differences between Loadpipe and Hamza, which I think the team is more on page with. And so, when I was talking to Mike earlier, it was, perhaps naively on my part, like what sort of region would we be targeting and what, sort of specific product we'd be targeting. But this could be, kind of that. Like Hamza's not going to just become Hamza overnight. We should hope not to have like instant user adoption both on the vendor and the buyer side initially, because we're going to have a lot of questions answered rather, I think, ruthlessly that we didn't even know that we needed to ask. And so I really like this idea of this early adopter, sort of like founder vendor sort of paradigm, which we could reward with some sort of like token airdrop so that we can actually iron out the kinks from, start to finish for this groundbreaking, very, very long solution that we're providing both through Loadpipe and Hamster.
Great. Yeah. It's exciting that I think, of course, people can give us feedback out, Alex or I, but after the calls or passing. But yeah, seems like we're just trying to think of the name of the program and the positioning, and of course we got to make an outline of the structure and
also Mike, also the curriculum, right? So everybody here, David, actually, I want to speak to you as well, because you were probably one of the ones who came into this company with the least exposure to Web3, right? And I was talking with an investor the other day, speaking to him about Hamza, and I mentioned like airdrops, and he was speaking to me, oh yeah, like in Gaza, and the gap. We are talking about words, guys. Most people don't even know the alphabet, right? So the semantics of this is very, very low level, and we cannot skip those steps. David, do you want to say something?
Actually, I was speaking about something similar to this with both before the tokenomics last day, and more than catching up with the words, let's say, with the meaning of some words that we use in daily basis, let's say. For me, the most difficult part is understanding or agreeing, let's say, with this decentralization, right? Like, who is responsible for what we decide as a core team, let's say, what is in hands of people that holds the token, etc., right? That is what I am feeling as the most difficult part, right? To change my mind from more vertical, let's say, entity to a completely flat one, right? So that is what I feel it's harder for me.
got it.
Thanks. Yeah. So it's a lot of things, everybody here, right? It also comes down to if you have a good narrative, if you have a good perspective to this, I think now is the time that you do share them. Well, not right now, but definitely reach out to Mike or me and share it, right?
I'll just say it, Alex, and I think some people know me, but now I kind of just... So what I usually do when with Blimp, especially the first program or first cohort, you don't really have... Of course, you should have a basic curriculum, but I added and modified it based on the students or whatever sellers' questions. So I make more lessons by video as people are in the program asking, and then I forgot that part would be needed, or didn't even think that would be needed, and then you're kind of adding lessons as you go. So I like to kind of keep the first programs a little bit flexible to say this is, like you said, this is a first one, and we might modify the contents as we go based on the user feedback. And then you're kind of dripping it out. You don't need to build the whole course at the beginning. Usually I would build it as we went. So I would do the first week or the first module is usually called, and there's lessons in a module, and then you would have people go through that, and then you're, rather than doing the whole thing from the beginning, because it's overwhelming, and it's more fun for me too, because I have a little bit more pressure to make it as people are participating. So we could do it that way, where we make the first module, get people started, and then build it out as in live. That's how I like to do it personally, because it's overwhelming to make it before you release.
I come back to a comment. I can't remember if it was John or Bo who told me, but there's basically a way when it comes to the technical aspect of building something new, where you have to graduate from the point of you no longer need to actually expose people to the Web3 decentralization, NFT, airdrop. It doesn't even become part of the conversation because the functionality and the flow is so good, right? And obviously that's where you want to end up at. That's kind of the trick, right?
I 110% agree. Like, in some of the documentation I've been doing for like white paper, potentially white papers, like, I feel like there's a superstition around blockchain or crypto, like even just as words. And so, like, we could potentially use a word like decentralized, but ultimately the end user experience should be indistinguishable, maybe besides like a sort of wallet if we have to, from like a traditional Web2 experience. It really should be the same.
Agreed.
That's a good point.
Okay, so actually, David and James are speaking now, but I don't know who should go like first. But maybe a quick update, James, on your progress so far, and I know we have another session on Friday, and we have one Monday about tokenomics, but just a high level maybe update for this kind of like 6-week check-in.
Yeah. So as some of the team knows, because I've reached out to you guys individually or in small groups, I was just trying to get familiar with the project, sort of tying back in with onboarding, not just for vendors, but also like internal team members, really trying to understand what some of the terms within the project meant, understanding the differentiation between, of which I'd love to actually post something in the chat right here and kind of see what you guys think based off of like one of the conversations that I've had. That said, yeah, I'm working on a light paper for Loadpipe. I think shortly I might be working on a light paper for Hamza, depending on like the needs for the project. Tokenomics this week I've sort of taken a backseat on, I think, besides the previous meeting, just because, we need that single source of truth. And I think at this point, most of the team does understand and agree on what Loadpipe and Hamza is. That said, I'm also putting together a list of some of the questions that come across in these various conversations so that we can present them to, sort of the consensus here and resolve them. So, a very, very good week for me. Ultimately, I've learned a lot, and I think a lot of the team has this.
Yeah, it was a big week. I mean, it's only Wednesday, but yeah, we had an intense Monday and yesterday, and today we've been chatting quite a bit and making progress. And to what David said, right? It's to be like a flat or democratic or open. It takes more time to make. I don't know what the word is, consensus or alignment and get everybody on the same page. Plus, we're all mostly remote. I know a couple of us are in Chiang Mai, but for the last couple of weeks, we've been all basically working online. So it makes, we have to be extra expressive. Yeah, thank you. We have to work hard to communicate. It's so hard, to make sure everybody's on the same page. And I know it's been hard for James to keep up with some of the, maybe on the product side updates or the partnership updates that have been happening. So I don't know, James, if you have a suggestion on that, what do you think is a solution to loop you in, to send you DMs of updates? What do you think is the best?
As far as me, I think actually I feel equipped to handle this. That said, we have a decentralized team and we have, different people working in things. And there's really no natural transparency into the work that they're doing. For example, I don't understand what John's doing or, what Bo and Garan are doing as far as the programming effort. And I don't necessarily need to, unless it becomes relevant for the documentation that I'm learning. John had just asked a question based off of that sort of thesis statement for what Loadpipe is, right? And, John, to answer your question, and maybe this is a good exploratory lesson, but I'm writing this white paper more so for potentially investors or potentially a sort of IDO. We're not targeting vendors so much with this document, and we're not even necessarily targeting the internal team. And so consequentially, we shouldn't have to explain what a Web3 marketplace is. So we'll certainly include some of those questions. We don't necessarily have to include what a middle layer solution is. In the thesis statement, though, that will be included inside the document as well. And that when Mike's talking about the Monday and the following days until today that we've had, it was sort of these kinds of conversations, individually with the team, trying to figure out what we are, as like Loadpipe as a protocol. And I think we're sort of going to coalesce. My goal, like when I'm writing this white paper, is to pull everything together so that the entire team can have a single source of truth, or at least trampoline, to have an exploratory conversation about the concepts that they don't understand, relative to something. So, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, let's just try our best to keep everyone up to date somehow, especially James on the tokenomics. So, various partnerships, product updates, if we could keep him up to date. David, do you want to share some updates on the finance department?
Sure. What I would like to emphasize regarding finance is about the invoices and when we receive them in order to be paid on time, right? Of course, I will keep doing the reminders and all the stuff, but if you guys want to ensure that you are paid on time, I suggest that maybe you have it drafted a little bit ahead of time, so you just need to put the amount, so everything goes a little bit smoother on that regard. I think that's important because I think it was an invoice after the payment on April 1st, so that specific person will need to wait until the 15th of April, which might not be optimal for them, right? I think that's important to mention.
Agreed. I mean, are the formats coming in okay? So, like, putting the crypto address on the actual invoice, the formats, I think it was a little bumpy in January, and February's gotten better. But
yes, I didn't see anything that is like really bad in that regard. If something needed to be amended, I emailed the person and it has been amended properly. So no problem with that.
I hope, I know we're so transparent here, but, you've been working on the budget and different kind of burn rates and time frames. So, and we will, we do want to fundraise. So Alex, do you think we should share a little bit of that with the call today on the budgeting? No.
Let's wait with and that's not because it's super secret information. Everybody is just that. I think that takes a little more planning. But I think what we can say is that we are planning to fundraise this year, and you will hear more about that.
I think it's worth sharing. There's a couple. Of course, we're deciding how to fundraise, like tokens to more, the retail or to the broader community, or like maybe like in a VC or a fund format, maybe an equity. So just some thoughts for people.
Yeah, but that's the thing, Mike. Let's collect our thoughts on the options before we mention that this is, because it's true. There's many different ways of doing this, and I think it's fair that we make this kind of an open workshop almost. But it's too early.
Okay, fair point. So let's see. I think the last major department, which I guess I could speak for quickly because we're still filling it more, is operations and vendors. And then maybe legal, Andres is not here. So the legal side, the foundations have been formed, the operating company's been formed. We're basically fully established. On the operations side, vendor side, we have a lot of resources from our years in e-commerce. I just recently made a Telegram group with a Chinese vendor that also accepts crypto payments into China, which I think is an advantage, and has worked in the years in the industry, and I've met multiple times and worked with to discuss with our product team about integrations. I think they could be a really good first supplier to work with, both because we have a long-term relationship and they accept crypto and they know crypto and they're open to it, and technical people. Also, the thought is the thought is just the long term of that. But go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I just have a question, because I know Alex was sort of looking at a roadmap of sorts for us, but and forgive me if I just don't know, because I haven't crawled over the documentation that we have yet. But but like, do we have an overall roadmap for not just like development, not just for fundraising, but also for like rollout?
Yeah, there's still a rough one that's being more cleared up, but we shared about the kind of the cohort, the course, the program of the first batch of suppliers. I think the rough idea, is maybe the product should be fully functional in production in May, but I think we should give it a time for testing and such. So June, we're hoping to maybe in May start to introduce the seller program that we're discussing earlier about like the course and the mastermind and the onboarding help and VIP. So maybe the idea is start that first batch of sellers in June, where they would work on the program of learning how to list and how to service the buyers.
And to be clear, I don't actually expect us to have, like a robust answer to the question I was more asking, because I feel like that's a good goal for us to have internally.
I think the idea is the seller onboarding is also around the token, right? Because we're trying to have the token as one of the utilities is to become a vendor. But these batch cohort courses might be our maybe pre-launch method of a seller joining the ecosystem through this program, and then retroactively being converted to a traditional seller through the permissionless method that we want to do long term with a token. So I think roughly we're thinking 2 cohorts, maybe one in the summer in this June timeframe, and then maybe another in the fall, maybe 3 months after, maybe September, maybe those 2, and then hopefully, but we would like to move, as a Web3, we want it to be a permissionless model, but I think that's also reliant on the token and that format too.
Okay. Yeah, it's coalescing. Maybe a question for the broader team, but like, I know people are working on various forms of documentation, but is anyone creating documentation for like general business strategy? Like rollout sequence, because that's just one other mirror, that helps like inform us, as a team as to like where we're going and why and how we're going.
I think, Jose's been anxious to help with more technical and user documentation, but of course we need an interface. On the rollout strategy, I think it's probably between Alex and I as of now to work on that, but maybe we need a skeleton or a framework before we kind of fill it in deeply. I would I would love to have you on board maybe once you get some of the more of the tokenomics side ready. I don't know if you're interested or able to participate, but I think that's really on the side of Alex or I, or maybe we would like to delegate that as a learning and development bucket of the marketing department and business development department. Alex is helping outline the different kind of sub parts of the marketing department, and one would be learning and development, which would include some of that.
Okay. Yeah, and again, I don't expect these to be solved. I think this is a good way we're going down. As a team, able to ask questions like this, and again, coalesce. So.
Yeah, that's what we try to do with these town hall. This ideas. This is the idea. But yeah, of course, it's super exciting, and I'll be honest, maybe it's a nerve-wracking. We're doing something that's not been done before, right? Like, I think that's any kind of startup. We're building it in midair, like, with building it as we are in the air. We're flying an airplane and building it at the same time. So it's also on the buy side, right? Do we just let anybody buy? Do we only limit certain like whitelist addresses? Like we have this testnet right now. We have people that have participated in the testnet that's still on Hamza.biz. Maybe we can do something special for those people and give them access to buying on production. Or I think limiting on the buy side might be beneficial too than just letting anybody buy. It might make people feel more privileged to buy. I'm so good with that.
I think it's, maybe a premature conversation right now. Frankly, like I'm holding up some things for some documentation that I have to work through. But at some point we should, two things. If we're planning on fundraising, we should probably have specialized fundraising meeting, and secondarily, and more importantly, we should probably have like a rollout and strategy discussion meeting. And again, these don't belong right now because we're still answering some of the questions and figuring some of the things out. But I think like maybe a month from now, that's something to look forward to.
Well, so
Also, can I ask?
Please, go.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I mean, I just said I think it's also reliant on your amazing white paper, right? Right. No pressure, James. But I think we're thinking like June is when we start to really work on fundraising more publicly and purposefully. It's June.
Also, is there any status update on like grant applications?
Yeah, the update is I've not actually started that process at all. That's something I was recently discussing, and I can start, but at least the white paper is a prerequisite for that. I think out like as soon as possible, and we already have a website, right? And not everything has to be robust.
Okay.
Yeah, another thing to look at too is the marketing, which is something that I called Mike and I talked to him about that we might want to look at because that's going to make, in a weird way, like some of the grant applications easier. It's going to make our eventual roll-up potentially easier. It's going to make, if we want to go the VC route and want to have that discussion, it's going to make that easier. It's going to make it easier to onboard vendors, so on and so forth. So, in my opinion, that's something we should probably, if we start scoping the flame sword pretty soon.
Okay.
Well, one other thing I wanted to mention, and this is, but one thing we talked about bringing up at the town hall is coordinating. So,
you're right.
Everybody here, for the most part, participated and in that first coordinate round. I believe me, John, Alex, Mike, and I believe Jose voted as well. But I think we were the only people that were on that round that actually voted. But we are going to run it back because I think we weren't clear enough, I suppose, in what the requirements were and what needed to happen. And so early next week, I think the 15th, maybe Monday, is a good day to start thinking about setting up that meeting and getting everybody in the same room once again. And what we decided we're going to do is, one, I wrote up a little bit of documentation, but I need to make it a little bit more robust so that it's not just being at the meeting. We can also direct people to some page that walks through what it looks like to vote and why we're doing it this way and what it enables in the future, all those sorts of things. I believe almost everybody here, I need to get everybody into some form of our Notion where we'll share community docs like this. So I have one set up right now for the engineering team, and then I have one set up for the administrative team, but I need a more general purpose one, and that's where that document will ultimately land. But again, next Monday, I think what we decided we're going to do is we're going to set up two concurrent rounds. One is going to be the retroactive round, a replay of the retroactive round we did initially, as well as a current round. And then we're going to keep on doing those two sessions in line with the current period round until we come back up to present. And then we'll just be doing one current epoch, on 2-week or 1 month timelines going forward from there. And so that's, and then everybody who's here, everybody who's in those circles and contributing will be, we'll get that. We'll start saying that is our canon in terms of token distribution. And again, that's as a percentage of what we decide an eventual team distribution is, which is still subject to some modeling when it comes to what our final tokenomic number will be.
Great.
And just circling back, just to make clear, because I'm currently tied up with the white paper, the tokenomics call on Friday, when we're talking about the buy-side pressure, is that a meeting that you're comfortable with?
Yeah, no. I'll leave that one. We'll talk a little bit about the ecosystem actors. I need to dedicate maybe some time to it, probably tomorrow. I guess it has to be tomorrow. But I'll draw some things up and I'll lead that conversation. And also I'll bring in, I guess the one thing I would ask of everybody who's done tokenomics stuff before is just send me whatever diagrams you have. And so this is specifically aimed at John. I'll also message you about this, but also James, send me whatever like diagrams and things that you have already drawn up, and we can go through and compare. Also, yeah, anybody who's written, any sort of diagrams or is something other than what is in the like shared Figma that we started with, and I'll bring it all in there and we can compare and contrast. And yeah.
Awesome. And a brief caveat, I can make myself available like anytime tomorrow.
Okay, sick.
Ideas. So.
Okay, yeah. Then let's work together. Let's set up a time and work together. You're 5 hours ahead. Want to start at like 1 p.m. your time tomorrow?
Certainly can. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Then I will talk to you about that.
There's a Figma that we all have access to that has those drawings that you were just talking about.
What'd you say?
There's a Figma that has all those drawings, the ones we were talking about most recently. So I think you have access to that Figma. Everyone has access to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you mind sending me the link again?
Yeah. Okay.
Also, not quite, because I haven't been to the documentation inside the correct folder, so I'm also do that as well.
Okay, so I think we covered everything. I mean, it's right at the 1 hour mark, so we like to keep these at 1 hour, or unless there's a couple of questions or anything, it's open to the community too. There's some here from the community that is great. We welcome anything, and this is the April 10th, 2024 Town Hall for Loadpipe Foundation. Wrapping up. How's everybody doing? How you doing, Alex? Felt good? It always gets me excited. I can't sleep now.
Yeah, it's all good problems we're dealing with, honestly. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by the guy Peter Diamandis. He says, "The day before something is truly a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea." I think that's what we're doing.
Okay, it's true. It's exciting. Awesome. All right, thanks everybody, and that's a wrap. It'll be posted on the map.loadpipe.com/blog. Thank you for being here with us. Exciting times.
Yeah,
Thanks everyone.
Thank you all.